Afternoon, Mike. How you doing today?
Hey, guys. I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Good, good. How long was the Calipari press conference, and who spoke after him?
Well, they had Trevin Brazil there and a couple other guys. I had to leave right about the time that started because I had to get back home for a few minutes. But Brazil talked some. The Calipari part of the press conference lasted about 45 minutes, and, man, he had a lot to say. And if you think about it, he should have had a lot to say because I think this is the first full press conference he's had since he was hired. We've seen little bits and pieces as he's been other places. You know, sound bites will pop up on social media, but this was a full-blown presser. And I found it fascinating. The first thing he talked about was they haven't done anything from a team standpoint, any of the offense or defense they're going to run, any of that stuff. All summer was all about individual drills. He said, this is the first time I've really had a chance. He said, when you start with nothing, he said, I had no players, no schedule, nothing. And I started from that, and he said, one of the advantages is I got to handpick every player that's on this team. And he said he still sticks to that 9 will play. And he said, I've got, 3 guards, 3 wings, and 3 bigs, and that's what they're going to do. And he said anybody else that gets into that mix is going to have to play their way into that mix. But it is all about individual development. He said he has always had the philosophy that when a player leaves his program, he wants them to be able to say, I'm the best basketball player I've ever been. He said that's the goal with these guys. Now, it started, honestly, according to him, with physicality, getting bigger and stronger and being in better shape. And he said he's already had a couple of parents come in and immediately notice how much more physical looking their son has become. He said, we're hitting the weight room. We're doing it every morning. You show up, you got to show up on time for breakfast, and then we do weight training. And he said, there's nothing harder than to lift weights that early in the morning. That's what we do. He said, we're going to be a speed team, and I recruited players with speed, but he said, that doesn't mean you always are as fast as you can be. And he said he's already arranged to have the sprint coach for the track team to come over when they get back from this break they're fixing to go on, and they're going to work more on their footwork to become faster, to run faster. He said basketball players a lot of them don't know how to run. And we're going to teach these guys how to run. A lot of it is mental. He said, our goal is to get these players to play fast but slow down their minds, and you do that through drills. He also said he wants them to have a mindset of thinking big but working bigger. In other words, he wants them to decide how big this program can be and to think bigger, but then you have to work harder to match the thinking big part. So all of that stuff was really interesting. Just his philosophy on how players, he says that players have to he's got to teach them to become their own biggest critics. He said, I want them to be harder on themselves than I am. I don't want them to judge themselves by what I say about them. I want them to go beyond and be more critical of themselves than I am. So all that sounds interesting. We'll see how it works out. One of the most interesting things I've heard him say, guys, is he started talking about the initial success he had at Kentucky, where he had that great run where he won a national championship, and he was always in Final Fours, and that was before people got mad at him at Kentucky. And he said that was a great run, but he said, guess what? Nolan Richardson had that same run here at Arkansas. And he said, people that don't understand this is a basketball school, I do. He said, Bud Walton Arena, we're sitting here I'm sitting there in my office in the middle of July, and I'm told Bud Walton's already sold out. He said, there's an excitement that I've felt all over the state. We're going to need help with this. He said, I anticipate, and I don't know how this works, but he said, I anticipate as many as 1,000 people who are Razorback fans around this state and maybe even out of the state at one time or another will help us do something that we need, so that when the season is over, 1,000 different people will be able to say, hey, I played a part in that. I helped him do this. I helped him do that. So he said a mouthful.
Was there anything brought up, or maybe not about brought up? You can tell that he's reaching out to the entire state. He's not just staying in Fayetteville and reaching out from there. I mean, he had a camp a couple of weeks ago in Russellville. They said they're playing, I don't know if it's exhibitions or scrimmages or whatnot, in Hot Springs and in Pine Bluff. Not every program that is viewed as a statewide program gets out and actually acts statewide. That stands out to me. I wonder what you thought.
Yeah, he didn't talk a lot about that personally today, but I've read that, and it's a tremendous idea, because most people that inherit this job, and it's true in any sport, it's not just basketball, it's very unusual to take a job where there's one big major college team in an entire state that sort of dominates. You've got fans all over the state. Most are split, like Alabama and Auburn, situations like that. So he obviously wants to take advantage of that and plans to do it. And I think it's huge. I think it's huge that he understands that. I think it's also interesting that he put, when I read that story about Ronnie Brewer, about him being in charge of player development, I thought, well, are they taking him out of a recruiting role? What is this? And he said, no, he's in charge of Arkansas. And he said, we've already made a couple of offers in-state. But he said, if we're going to offer an in-state kid, he's got to help make us a winner. Now, it's good that Arkansas has such good AAU programs and plays such good basketball, because I think a lot of people were worried that they weren't going to go after the top Arkansas kids. So there's an indication that they're going to do that. But he also said that Ronnie will recruit the Dallas area, up in Missouri, over in Oklahoma. In other words, he will recruit the area around closest to Arkansas. So that was interesting. But he also put Ronnie in charge of bringing ex-players back in to talk to the players and to be a part of the program, because I think that's big too. You get a Corliss to come in here, you get a Scotty Thurman, you get a Corey Beck, you get all these guys coming in and know that they're welcome. I think that's huge. If you don't have that, I think you're making a mistake.
Would you be into bringing guys that Coach Cal coached in Kentucky, or do you see that as maybe a drawback of just bringing guys that played for the University of Arkansas? Like if John Wall came in or Boogie Cousins, it's kind of the same thing?
Yeah, or what about Malik Monk? There was such a controversy when he left Arkansas and went to Kentucky. So are there still hard feelings over that? And I get the feeling that, no, there won't be. He would be welcome here. Calipari's such a likable guy. He's so easygoing. He was asked if he felt comfortable here, because there was a reference made to that statement he made about being initially on Dixon Street and having to have earplugs, and it was noisy and all that. And he said he's settled into his house now. He said it's on a golf course on the end of a cul-de-sac, and he said, I could get up early in the morning and walk my dog with my hair all messed up and no one ever sees me. So he said, am I comfortable with that? He said, heck yeah, I love that. He said, I've always liked living in college towns, especially if you've got places you can go that are close by, like Dallas or Kansas City. Honestly, with the airports around here, you can fly just about anywhere you want to go now, so with nonstop. So, yeah, he just said he was comfortable. He said his wife grew up 2.5 hours from here in Missouri, and they've already been up there and drove up there to see her relatives up there. So they're all happy here. He seems like he's settling in very good, and now you got to make it happen. And I think he knows that. I mean, it's going to be big when Arkansas plays Kentucky in Rupp. That is going to be a huge game.
Mike, can I ask you a football question? We got football camp starting just around the corner. How long will it be? Does this team make a bowl game And when with all this basketball excitement, are people still going to be excited about football come October, or do you think we'll already be talking about basketball?
Boy, that's really hard to say. I've said this before, guys. I think one deep, this team is good. And I think we're going to see that starting when practices start later this week. Won't see a lot. There's so many things that we can't see. You know, they're not going to do full speed contact in front of us. And honestly, you know this, most coaches are reluctant to do full speed hitting, tackling, blocking in practice in preseason because you get guys hurt before they ever play. So they may do some of that. I don't think we'll see it. So what we'll really get is a little 7-on-7 action, watch receivers versus D-backs, watch quarterbacks without a pass rush. So it'll be hard to judge that. And I think we're going to find out about this football game, the second game of the year when they go on the road to Oklahoma State. That's going to define, I think, the season. If they're healthy at that point, I think they got a shot. I like what Petrino does. I really think Travis Williams has those guys in his hip pocket. You saw the rap video he did that was put online. He had those guys going nuts. So you got, I think, an offensive coordinator that the guys like on the offensive side, a defensive coordinator, a head coach that's kind of learned, okay, I'll just sit back and let those guys do their thing. I'm in charge of, I'm going to go over here and help the offensive line, which is what I'm good at. If they don't get a lot of injuries, I think it'll be a good season. But you got to keep people healthy.
You think Oklahoma State's the most important game of the year?
It is, because I think you if you don't win it, it's got to be you got to see something in this team. You got to see some fight.
It can't be 48-14 like the last two games of the regular season last year. Is what you're saying?
Absolutely not. You got to have this new quarterback succeed. You got to see him run the offense, because that's what Petrino does. He develops quarterbacks. So we have to see evidence of that. And, I don't know if you guys saw it. There was an online article that everybody's talking about, and I don't know how much Petrino, he's only had one press conference, so I don't know where this came from. But the article stated that he, when he was the offensive coordinator at A&M, started noticing around the SEC that all these defenses had gotten smaller because of the passing game, that they were recruiting linebackers that were quicker, defensive backs that were faster. They didn't want big physical guys. And Petrino noticed that, so he's going to go more with a power running game, which would, I think, surprise fans, because I think that he's more about throwing the football. So we'll see if there's any evidence of that. Are they going to use a fullback? Are they going to take Braylon Russell and use him as a fullback?
They've even said I think the couple of the tight ends could drop back and line up as a fullback on occasion. Just the idea of that alone makes me think we're thinking a little bit about fullback.
That's right. So, guys, do we see evidence of that in the preseason? They may keep it from us. I don't know. But Petrino, Pittman always has his assistant coaches do one press conference in the preseason, and that's it. We don't get them until a bowl game, if they're in a bowl game. So Bobby Petrino will have his one press conference with us at some point over the next few weeks, and he will be asked about that, I'm sure. I'm not sure what he'll say, but people will ask him about it, and we will be watching for it when we're at practice.
Well, Mike, it will be occurring on August 13th, probably right around the time that we're starting halftime, because they've got a 9 o'clock in the morning practice, and then Coach Petrino and the quarterbacks are afterwards. So got to wait a couple of weeks to be able to hear from him again. And then it looks like they're actually going to have Petrino again a week later, just looking at the fall camp schedule. And again, please change the name from fall camp. So you hear from him twice, which feels, that's different. That's different. You're not just going to hear from Petrino twice. You're going to hear from Travis Williams twice, too.
That is very different. I didn't know that, and it is. I'm glad to hear that, because that's one of the things about Pittman that I do not like. He got that from Kirby Smart, where he doesn't like his assistant coaches talking to the media a lot. Ugh. I do not like that. I think we learned so much from being able to talk to these position coaches, not just the coordinators, but the position coaches over the years.
Wonder at some point if someone would ask Coach Pittman about what's going on. I know he's not a coach at Georgia anymore, but, and we'll end on this thought here. You saw Ra Thomas last week, second time being charged with domestic violence of a sort. He was allowed to get into a diversion program the first time. The second time is not going to be can't go into a diversion program again. You got all these issues with players being incredibly reckless with vehicles. It's cost a couple of lives in the case. That is, to me right now, Mike, Georgia's got a little bit of the feeling of like Oklahoma, Miami from the 80s, early 90s, a little bit of Florida under Urban, a little bit of LSU under Coach O. That's a bad boy program, but nobody cares if you're bad boy if you lose. It's usually, the teams that make the headlines in this case are the ones that win, and Georgia's at the top of that list.
That's the real question mark with Saban gone now. Is Kirby Smart going to become Saban? Because Alabama largely avoided stuff like that. And that is, to me, is a warning signal. If I'm a Georgia fan, I'm a little bit unsettled by that stuff. You can overlook one guy, two guys, but when this stuff keeps happening, there's a sign that something's out of control there, and they got to rein it back in, or it could really hurt them.
Mike, we'll leave it there. Appreciate your time on these Mondays. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike Irwin on Mondays here on Halftime from Pig Trail Nation.